Okay, so today we are going to build Java EE6 application, starting from a very simple application all the way to building end-to-end that take advantage of all the Java EE6 technology, Servlet 3.0, JPA 2.0, and EJB 3.1, and JSF 2.0, and RESTful services using JSL, JAX RS 1.1. Okay. So let's start with the exercise one. So exercise one is building very simple Java SE application. And then we are going to make that Poja class in that application using managed bean annotation. And the managed bean annotation lets you have interceptors. So we're going to actually add interceptors to that managed bean. Okay. Uh, since we don't have that much, well, actually, instead of creating step by step from the scratch, I'm going to just use the documentation, and in terms of running it, I'm going to actually running it. So these are all Maven applications, so you can open these applications either using NetBeans or Eclipse, and you should be able to run it. Okay, but in terms of building the application step by step, I'm going to actually use the documentation. So the first step is we're going to create a Maven project, Java SE Maven project. Okay, so the screen capture is done through Eclipse. Okay, Maven project, and we're going to use a default workspace location. You can use a different workspace if you want to. And you're going to just build Maven very simple application using quick start. Okay, so if you just type quick start, then you're going to see Maven archetype quick start. Okay, so you're going to choose that one. And then we're going to actually provide the group ID. So group ID I'm using here is my company, and this is artifact ID. So you can use any name of your choice. And I'm going to use a package, org Java EE6 package, and finish. All right, so now we are going to create our first Java class called the ISBN generator.java. So it's basically generating the ISBN number using math package. Okay, so this is a very simple project class. So this is the way we create a class. And then we're going to actually create a main method. So in this main method, all we do is basically calling the static method of that the method, not static method, this method of ISBN generator object. So we create this guy, and then we are going to call it. Okay. So so far nothing really fancy. We are not using any of Java E6 things yet. Okay. All right. Then you're going to run the application. So right click it, and then you're going to run as and Java application. And then we are going to choose a method that contains main method, which is a main class. Okay. And then you're going to just have an output like this. Okay. All right. So far nothing really Java E6 specific. Now, next step here, we are going to actually add the Java EE6 feature. So here we are going to change this ISBN generator class to managed bean by using managed bean annotation. Okay. So here we are going to change this ISBN generator class by providing managed bean annotation. Okay. So by having managed bean annotation to your project class, you now acquire a couple of capabilities. The one capability you acquire by having it converted into managed bean is having lifecycle method. So you can use post construct and pre-destroy annotation. And if you annotate post construct to a method, then this method gets executed after this object, managed bean object, gets created. And pre-destroy annotation indicates that this method will be invoked. Okay, so in this case, we are just using system out println statement. This method gets invoked after this managed bean gets destroyed. Okay. All right. So now we're going to actually have some compilers because we have not added any dependency yet. So we have not added any Java E6 managed bean annotation dependency yet. So we are going to change a pom.xml file to add Java EE6 web API. So we added this dependency to the POM file. Okay. And then, basically you specify, by the way, we want to create a jar file that contains the main method. So we're going to actually have the archive, the manifest, and this is the main class that contains main method. Okay, so that we can execute the job file. All right, so we changed the pom.xml file to add Java E6 dependency. And then what we're going to do is, because we now have Java EE6 dependencies, we can inject this ISBN. Since we converted this ISBN generator as a managed bean, we can inject it into other class. In this case, main class, we're going to actually use add resource. Now, there is one caveat. Okay. Now, when you're using this injection like a resource, you can use, in fact, the add inject annotation from CDI as well. What it means is that you are depending on a container to inject this object. Okay, so there has to be some container environment. Okay, so you cannot run this application at the command line as a Java application. You have to run it from the container. And if you see glassfish directory, there is in fact what is called the client-side container called the app client. Okay, so we're going to actually use this app client-side Java SE container to inject this resource object. Okay, all right. And then we build and run the application. So now, if you just build and run the application, what you get is this null pointer exception. Okay. Because there is no container that can inject this one, because there is no container that inject this resource, this ISBN generator, this is actually becoming null. Okay, that's the reason you have to build a jar file. Okay, so we're gonna actually run as and maven install, and then we create a jar file. Okay, and then what you're gonna do is we are going to use this app client container. Okay, and then run this jar file. Okay, so this is the way that we can run that code. Okay, so I'm gonna actually try this one. All right, so I'm gonna open. So basically, I'm just using a solution. So if you go to your glassfish bin directory, so I'm gonna just go over here, and then you will see app client. Okay, this is the Java SC container. So you are basically providing a container using app client, and then when you run this jar file, this app client container will inject that ISBN generator managed bean resource. Okay, so I'm going to run this app client. Copy. Okay. All right, so this is what happens. So we have this post construct, and then we have this the pre-destroy method, and these are the ISBN generator. Oh, okay. So yeah, so this is the code that. So I haven't actually explained the interceptor. So this is the final result. Okay. So this is actually coming from the thing I want to show you is basically this too. Okay. Now we want to add interceptor, so that's actually 1.3, and this is the result after we added interceptor. Okay. All right. So another thing you can do when you are making a project into managed bean is you can add interceptors. Okay. So this is a code that actually added interceptors. So basically you're going to use interceptor called logging interceptor.class. Okay. Right? So every time this generate ISBN method gets executed, this logging interceptor.class, this logging, the interceptor method will be invoked. So if you take a look at the logging interceptor class, okay, it basically has around invoke method. Okay, so around invoke is actually kind of before and after. Okay, so before, by the way, inside of it, what you can do is, so it's actually providing this method can receive this invocation context object. And this invocation context object, you can actually call proceed. And this proceed method will call original method. So that is this method. Okay. So what we do is that we want to actually display a logging message. Okay. And then we call this original method, which is this. which is this. And then we're going to actually, call finally and this. Okay. So when we run that application, okay, and this is what we get. But one interesting thing is that, I was expecting this is being displayed before and this. So this is the this method. This method is the here. Okay, and then we are calling the proceed method of context object. So we should actually have this to be displayed. And then we have a finally of this. Okay. And then, so that should be actually after this one, but it might be actually due to how the println is actually working. So println might be actually being executed as a separate thread. So that's the reason we have, these two actually before this. Okay. Yeah, but actually what has to happen is this one gets executed first, and then this one has to get executed, and then we have to have this method to be executed. Okay. Here, the key point is that we created a managed bean and using @managed annotation, and we also added the interceptor to that managed bean, and then we were executing that managed bean code through a container. In this case, because we built Java SE application, we have to use app client, the Java SE container that comes with a Glassfish. Okay, so that's exercise 1. All right, so moving forward. Now, we are going to add JPA capability. So we are going to now, perform some persistence with this Java SE application, okay? So first, we are going to actually use a Java DB server. So you can start a Java DB server at the command line, but you can also start a Java DB from NetBeans. So I'm going to just use NetBeans. I have started the Java DB by clicking this start server. So Java DB is up and running, okay? All right, so Java DB is up and running. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the entity class, okay, called the book.java. So you can see this is entity class. It contains named queries, and this named queries contains a single named query. So it's basically find all books, and it's performing this query operation. Select all books, and we want to have it ordered to be ID and the descending order, okay? All right, and then we have a few attributes. So we have ID field will be used as a primary key, and then we have a title field, and we want to have it as a nullable, okay, meaning nullable false, meaning it cannot be null, and then description is length is 2000, okay, and then we have a string collection, okay, tags. All right. Now here, later on, you're going to actually use the element collection annotation to have it as a separate table. But now, because we are not using element collection, this is actually, the in the same table, okay, which might not be something that you want, okay. But in this case, that is the situation. And now we are going to modify the main.java file. Okay, so here what we do is we are going to perform persistent operation in Java SE application. So we created a POJA object. So we create a new book object, and we set the attribute title, price, ISBN, the number of pages and illustration. And then we provide the list collection of tags. So, it is tagged with a sci-fi and French. And then we are going to set those collection of tags to the book object. So we created a single book object here, and then we created another book object, okay? All right, now we created the entity manager object through entity manager factory object. So we provided a persistent unit name of it, okay? So we're gonna actually build a persistent XML file in a few seconds, okay? So we now have entity manager object. Because you are actually using entity manager in Java SE application, you have to create it yourself. Later on, when we are using entity manager in a web container, in Java EE application, it will be injected, okay? But here, because we are building as a Java SE application, you have to create it yourself. And you also have to create a transaction object because you are performing your transaction manually. All right, so we start the transaction by calling begin method of that transaction object. And then we persist those two book instances. and then we commit. Okay, and then we're gonna just display. We are calling the name query method, create name query, and we have defined this this find all books, right? So we are going to create a named query here, all right, here, okay, and then we basically perform it by calling get result set. So we basically get a list of books and we just display, okay. All right, now we have to create a persistent unit, persistent XML file, because we are performing persistency. So we are going to create the new a persistent XML file, but this persistent XML file has to be in a particular directory, right? So we're going to create the meta inf directory on the source main resources. So this has to be exactly in this directory, okay? And then we are going to create the persistent.xml file. And this persistent XML file contains information about your database. So here we are going to use a sample database. And then we have, what database, database characteristics, password, and, we are using Derby. And in terms of table generation, we are going to use a drop and create table. So every time we run this application, a new table, book tables, will be recreated, okay? All right, so we create a persistent XML file. And then we have to modify pom.xml file so that we actually have this Eclipse persistency dependencies, okay? Okay, so now when you run the application, then we are going to see, all books. So inside we created 2 books, right? So we are going to see these 2. All right. And now the second step is now we are going to create a text column into separate table. So if you remember in JSP 2.0 basics, we learned element collection annotation. So this element collection now allows JPA 2.0 to let you in fact have the collection of the non-entity classes, okay, to be created as a separate table. Okay? So JPA 1.0 that was not allowed. The collection has to be all entities, right? But in JPA 2.0, the collection type does not have to be, and item type of the collection does not have to be entity type. In this case, it's just string class. Okay. So what we do is now we are using element collection, and then we are using also collection table to specify names of the table. Okay. So in this case, it is the same table, so you don't need this one. But if you want to have a different name as a table, then you can use the collection table. Okay. So this one in this case is probably not needed because the name of the field is already tagged. Okay. All right. So now when you run the application, now we should see book and text table to be created, and then we actually should see this too. Okay. All right. So let's run that application. So that is this JPA 2.0. I'm going to run as in Java application. And this is the main class. Okay, so this is so what we do is basically we display all the books, and then we also actually perform. Yeah, that's actually on the next step. Okay, so next step we are going to add a named query. Okay, so named query we actually create another query. So in this case, we want to perform all books that are tagged with a sci-fi. Okay, so in this case, we have a where clause. Okay. So when we run the app and then we display all the books. So we are using the new name query we just created. Okay. So when we run the application, so that is the reason that we have the all books, and then we have all sci-fi books. Okay. We have only one. Okay. So in this case, in this exercise, what we have done is that we now use JPA persistency, and we have created persistent.xml file to indicate what database you're using and some of the database properties. And we also use the element collection annotation to allow a collection of non-entity type to be, to be used. And then we can we actually create a separate table for that. Okay, so that's exercise 2. All right, exercise 3. Now we are going to convert this application to a web application. So in this case, we are going to use a Servlet 3.0. Okay, all right. Okay, so now we are going to create a web project. So here you can just type web app, and again we are going to use a very simple, the web type application from Maven. So we're going to just choose Maven archetype and web app. Okay, and we are going to name it as the whatever name of your choice. So I'm actually using the pattern E2E_O3 servlet, and we are using the same package org.java EE6. And finish. All right, so what we're gonna do is that we wanna actually copy the book and the book code actually. So we want to actually copy this same package because we want to convert all the logics that we have built in Java SE application, including persistency in this web application. So we're going to copy this package. Okay, so we copy it, and then we are going to paste it into this src main Java. Okay, and then you can remove main.java file because we don't need main.java file anymore because we are creating a servlet-based web application. Okay, so we're going to create a servlet called the book servlet.java file. Okay, so that is this code. Now, basically in this servlet code, you want to copy the code from the main.java file, okay? Because the logic that we want to execute in previous exercise is basically creating a book object and then save those book objects into the database, right? Now in this case, we are going to receive the data from the user. So user will actually enter the information like a title, price, and the description from the form, and that form request will be used to create a book object. Okay, so in previous exercise, we kind of hard-coded the book properties, right? And then we create a book object. Here we are having a user to enter the information, and we are basically getting those, form field data to create a book object. And the rest of the code is pretty much the same. We still create entity manager object here, and then we perform the persistency here. Okay, and we display all the books, and then we display all the sci-fi books. All right, so now we have to create a persistent.xml file in a different location. So, again, it's the same. Yeah, we can actually copy and paste as well, but, we have to change. So I'm actually creating brand new persistent.xml file on the meta inf directory on the source main resources. Okay. Now, the difference between this persistent XML file from the one that we have seen in exercise 2 is that now we are going to use a transaction type JTA. Okay, so we are not using local resource, and then we are going to use the JTA resource data source object. The Glassfish comes with the default default data source object that are already configured into the Glassfish. So we're going to just use that by using jdbc__default. Okay, and then you have to specify entity class. Okay, so that entity class we have is a book, right? All right. So we created a persistent XML file, and then we're going to actually create the index.jsp file, which is basically providing a very simple form with fields that are being filled by the user. So this is a form field, and action is a book servlet. And if you take a look at the the servlet code, this book servlet is actually annotated, right? So let's take a look at the servlet code. So here. URL pattern is a book servlet. Okay, so you don't need web.xml file in this example because we are using web servlet annotation. Okay, all right. So we so we created a form, and basically this form is very simple, asking users to fill out the title, price, and things like that. Okay, and again, pom.xml file, we are using Java E6 Web API. All right, now you can delete the web.xml file, by the way. When you're creating the web application from Maven, unless you specify Java E6, it will create a web.xml file as a default. So you can delete it, or because it doesn't contain anything, it's probably benign anyway. So you can delete the web.xml file because we are not using it. And you're going to perform Maven clean and Maven install. Then you are going to run that application on Glassfish in this case. Okay. All right. And then you're going to actually have this. So let's run that application here. So that is the servlet code. I'm going to install it so that I build it from scratch. Okay, and then I'm going to run it. Okay, so here I'm going to just say title, my own title, price is $23, description whatever, number of pages 23, and tag is sci-fi, okay, and French. And then if I submit, and then we have one books, and because it's actually annotated, I mean it is tagged as a sci-fi, it is also being displayed here. Okay. Now if I actually create another one, this time I'm going to say just French, and my own book title too, and pay prices to 30, whatever, and then submit. Then so this is actually creating a brand new book. So it doesn't display the science, sci-fi book, because it's tagged only with the French. Okay. All right, so that is the exercise 3. So building an application using the servlet code. All right, next we are going to add EJB. So what we have done in exercise 3 is that we actually do all the persistence operation in web tier, meaning the servlet contains all the persistency logic. And you also do transactional operation yourself. You begin transaction yourself and you commit the transaction yourself manually. Okay. Now, the reason that EJB is useful in that regard is that EJB has a built-in transactional persistency behavior. So you don't have to create, for example, the entity manager yourself in the web tier, and also transactional behavior does not have to be studied by you. Instead, you can just depend on EJB's built-in transactional behavior. So that's the way we are going to introduce EJB into the code. So we are going to create an EJB called item EJB. So here we have item EJB. It's a stateless EJB. Now it is the EJB's responsibility to perform persistence. So here it's going to have entity manager to be injected using @persistent context. Okay. All right, so you don't have to create the entity manager object yourself. Okay, so we create a very simple item EJB stateless bean, and that basically contains the 3 methods: create book, find all books, and find all sci-fi books. So basically, all the persistent operation is being handled now by EJB. Okay, and there is nothing that you have to specify like a starting transaction or ending transaction, because each method is in fact surrounded by starting a transaction and committing a transaction. So that's all handled by EJB stuff. So the code is going to be a lot simpler. Okay. All right. And now you are going to inject this EJB using @EJB annotation. If you're using CDI, which is supported in Java EE6, we covered this one before as well. So you can use @inject annotation. In fact, usage of inject annotation is recommended rather than using @EJB, because @inject annotation is CDI based, more general purpose, the injection annotation. So you can use either @EJB or preferably using @inject. So basically you are injecting this EJB bean into the servlet code. Now here, this red colored code is the one that you can remove. Okay, so all this red colored code are persistency related code. Okay, now because you're using EJB create book and find all books and find all sci-fi books method, okay, you don't need all this transaction and persistency related code in your servlet. So these are all commented out. Okay, so code becomes a lot simpler. All right. And then so here we are also actually introduce intercept. So you can have interceptor to your EJB. So here, in the beginning, the exercise 1, we have this logging interceptor class, right? So now we're going to use this logging interceptor into the EJB. Okay, so we are going to have these interceptors with logging interceptor class and EJB. And here we are, still injecting this ISBN generator resource. Now, because we are running this application in Java EE container environment, EJB container environment or web container environment, we don't have to use app client anymore because Java EE app server provides the container environment. Okay, so the container will inject this ISBN generator object. Okay, and when we create a book, we are going to call this injected object generate ISBN method, and then we are going to use ISBN number to the book. Okay, so here now we are assigning ISBN number to the book instance. Okay, and then we have to copy this ISBN generator and logging interceptor Java file from the first exercise. So we're going to just use the same code. Okay, so you just copy these two code into this EJB project. Okay, so basically this one ISBN, yeah, you copy these two and paste it here. Okay, all right, now you are going to run the application. Okay, and the result is going to be the same, but the new object that gets created, you will see new book that gets created, you will see this ISBN number. Okay, so that is exercise 4. So we're going to run this application. Let's install it and run the application. All right, so title EJB and price 11 and description whatever, page 34, tag is sci-fi French, and submit. Okay, so you can see now we have this new book that has been added, has this ISBN number, allocated. Okay, and the previous book is ISBN number is null. Okay, and this is from sci-fi. Okay, so that is the exercise 4, in which we now introduced EJB as a way of delegating transactional persistence behavior, okay, to the EJB. All right, so this is the the login code. Now EJB 3.1 also introduced the concept of singleton object. So singleton EJB is a genuine EJB, so it does perform transactional behavior and everything, but it basically provides a singleton object for the whole application. So in this case, we are going to actually create the language singleton object. Okay, so by the way, when you use a singleton annotation, you can also use the startup, meaning when the application gets started, the singleton object gets created. Okay. So what we do is that when the singleton object gets created, we can also use this post construct method. So basically, this init language method will be invoked after the singleton object gets created. So what we do is basically, we are going to add this language, basically creating a hash map of these languages. So we have this language code and the actual meaning of the language code. EN is English and FL is French and D is German and things like that. Okay. So, and then we have this get language value. So basically what we do is that this method will be receiving this code, this 2-character code, and then it will return this value from this hash map. Okay, and this one is a good example of having it as a singleton object because it's basically a single object that actually translates some value to something else. Okay, so is a good candidate for singleton object. So we added that singleton to the application, and then just like other EJB object, we are going to inject it using @EJB or @inject. Okay, so now we have this singleton object to be injected, and then here when the user typed in the language code, then we are going to call that singleton object get language value. So if this value is like a EN, then it will return English, and then we are going to use that English to set the content language. If it is FR, it will return French, and that French will be set as a content language. All right, and then we are going to also add this language part to the JSP page so that we can ask, what is the language code that you want to use for this particular book. Okay. All right, so that's what we have done. And when we run the application, we now see language code like en. Okay, so let's try that. So that is singleton war number 5. So let's build it and run it. All right, so title, singleton, price 23, whatever. Yeah, I don't have text fill up all this. And a language code. So this is a language code. So if I say en, that's English. So if I submit, and then you can see now we have language is English. Okay. If you say French, submit, then you can see the language code is now French. All right, so in exercise 5, we have introduced a singleton EJB object. Okay, so that is exercise 5. I'm going to actually move on to exercise 7. Yes, I'm running out of time. Okay, so exercise 7. Now, in Java EE platform, the default and recommended front-end view technology is JSF, not Servlet. Okay, not JSP or Servlet. Okay, so here we are going to convert this code, existing application, to use JSF. Okay, so first we are going to create JSF bean. Okay, so we call the item bean, and we're going to use a managed bean. Okay, again in CDI, it's recommended to use at named annotation rather than using managed bean. Okay. And by the way, this managed bean is different from managed bean of the exercise 1. So this is a managed bean from JSF. So this is in fact one of the confusing point, and one of the reasons why you should not use a managed bean of JSF anymore. Instead, you should use a named. Okay, at named annotation. Okay, but this is allowed. So here. All right, so basically, this JSF code replaces the servlet code. So this code contains injection of those two EJB beans. Okay, item EJB and language singleton EJB bean. Okay, and then it does have the to create book method and things like that. So basically, this is actually replacement of the book servlet code. So most of the book servlet code will be now in JSF bean. Okay, and since we don't need a book servlet anymore, we're gonna just delete it, or you can just leave it if you want to. Okay, so now we are going to use we are going to now create the facelet. Okay, so we are not going to use a JSP page anymore. We are going to use a facelet. So here we are creating new book X HTML facelet code. So here you can use the this name the namespaces, and then we are using hform. Okay, and this is pretty much the same as we have done, but the difference is that you can now see we can use this expression language. Okay, item book and book title and things like that. Okay. Yeah, so here, again, this is another example that we are using expression language to make a reference to this book list method of, the item bean. Okay. Okay, so that is the code, new book.xhtml facelet. Okay. And now we're going to actually we're going to actually modify index.jsp page to actually have, the refresh. So instead of we have to we specify this URL in the application, we want, when the application is up and running, we want to the URL to actually go to newbook.faces. Okay, right away. Okay. All right, so when we run the application, it should work pretty much the same. And now we actually have these books in the form of table. So we are using, facelets, the table, the tag. Okay. All right, so let's run that application. JSF, build it, and run the application. Okay, so title JSF, 23. Number of books is 35. French, and tax is sci-fi, and create books. Okay, so now we created books here. Okay, JSF2, English, and we have a new book. Okay, so we created a new book here. All right, so here in this exercise, we introduce JSF. Okay, so basically we are replacing Servlet JST combination with JSF bean and the JSF facelets. All right, next. Now we're going to use templating and composite component. Okay, so first we're going to use the template, JSF template. Okay, so here what we are going to do is, we're going to actually create the another class called the item Java. I'm going to explain why this is the case, because later on we are going to actually create another bean called the CD, and this book and CD actually kind of share the same fields like ID and price and title and description and things like that. Yeah, so price and title and description, they share these three things. So we want to actually have parent class called the item. Okay, and then we are going to write book class to extend this item. Okay, and then we are going to create the book CD class. So this is the CD entity class. Okay, again extending item. Okay, so basically, we now have two entity classes, book and CD, and since both entity classes have shared fields, the title, price, and description, we basically capture that the common fields with item superclass. Okay. All right. Now we are going to modify item ejb.java file to perform some operation to CD table. Okay. So instead of actually displaying just in a book table, we want to also add some operations to handle the CD. So basically we have create CD method and find all CD methods. So this is actually the same thing with the books. Okay. It just happened to be for CDs. And item being the same thing. So here we have to create a list of CDs. Okay, so just like we did with the list of books, we have a list of CDs. Okay, and we also have the CD list being found using find all CDs. Okay, so this code is basically adding another entity called the CD. Okay, and here we have to actually add, the Java E6 CD as entity class to the persistent XML file. And in terms of layout that XML file, okay. So now we are going to actually create a template file. So we're going to call it layout.html file. So here you can see we have 3 insertion point. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and these 2 insertion point actually is the same name. So the same value will be inserted both as a title as well as H1 header. Okay, and this is a content insertion point. So this is the where the actual content is being inserted. So this is a template. Then we have a 2 display file. Okay, so this is the new book display file, which is going to use the layout.xhtml, the template file that we just saw. So as you can see, it's actually using layout.xhtml file as a template, and then it's providing the content fragment that will be inserted into this template. So basically it provides create a new book as a title, the content fragment, and for content fragment, the whole thing. So this whole thing will be inserted. Okay, here. Okay, now here you can see so this is actually new book xhtml file, and then we have to create the same thing for new cd.xhtml file. Okay, now take a look at the notice that there is in fact a duplication of these 3 fields. Okay, so later on, we're going to actually capture this one as a composite component. Okay, but for now, we're just exercising templating. Okay, all right, so that's what we have done, and then we are going to just run the application. So that is templating this guy. Okay, so let's build the application. And UI is going to be pretty much the same. We just happen to be using a template. Okay, so this is all coming from the template. So if I go to create book and if I go to create CD, they use the same template. Okay, right? Yeah. So I can create the template JSF template prices 34 whatever, and just create a book. Okay, so we create a book here. Okay, this is a CD, and this is a book. Okay, so they're actually sharing the same thing. So this is the JSF template book, and price is 34, whatever. Okay, so now we have books that's actually being created. All right, so in this exercise, we have used a template, okay, that capture common look and feel of all the pages. We have two display pages, okay, that are actually using the same template. The next one is now we're going to actually use composite component. So as I mentioned in this exercise, in template exercise, those two display pages, a new book.xhtml and the new cd.xhtml, they actually have a common fragment. Okay, so common fragment I mentioned is basically, you know, this code for title and price and description. So what we want to do is we want to capture this common view fragment into a composite component. Okay, so that is the next exercise. So let's take a look at how we do this. All right, so this is the you're using composite component. So first of all, we are going to create a composite component, right? So, you know, as we have learned, composite component has interface and implementation. So in this case, interface basically is a contract, okay? So here it has an item and style, okay? And the style has a default background red, okay? And, you know, this one, name has to be required, and the style is required false, okay? And then, you know, these three things, you know, the title and price and description, those are the three fields, form fields, fragment, view fragment that we want to capture as a composite component, so that this composite component could be actually used in multiple display pages. Okay. All right. So here, you know, if you take a look at the input text here, it's actually providing the style. Okay. And then it's a value, and it's providing, you know, price and description. Okay. And then we are going to modify the display pages to use that composite component. So if you still remember, you have to actually provide this namespace where by the way, the composite component has to be located in the name that you specify, right? So composite and demo. So that has to be located on the web app and resources and demo. So this demo has to be the same as this. If you're using different directory like a demo2, then you have to specify demo2. Okay. And then you have this prefix. This prefix is something that you can, you know, name it in any way you want. We named it as EZ, and then we are using that prefix to indicate that this is the library of composite components that you want to use. And in that library, the name of the composite component is new item. Okay, so that's something that we have created here, right? Okay, and then it provides the actual, you know, the value. All right. Same thing with the new CD. So basically you are going to cut this out, and then you are going to replace it with this. Okay, so, you know, I show the code. Okay, so all right, the same thing with the new CDX XML facelet. Now we want this guy to use composite component as well, in the same way that new book XHTML has used the composite component. Again, we specify the namespace, same namespace, and then, you know, you're going to actually replace those three the form field fragment with this. Okay, this one is providing a green. Okay, so when we actually create a new item, if you still remember the new item composite component, the default value of the style is red. Okay, so unless, you know, the display page provides a value, it will actually use red as a background. Okay, so for the book case, it's not providing any the style value, so it's going to use the red color as a background. However, for the new CD, it's actually providing green as a style. Okay, so for for CD, it will use a green background color. Okay, all right. So when we run the application, okay, so let's run the application. That is a composite component. And build it. And let's run it. Okay, so as you can see, for book, it's actually using, you know, red color background. If I click create CD, it's using green background. Okay, so I'm going to just, you know, the CD2 title is whatever, description whatever, style is yeah. So we can specify something else, total duration, yeah, whatever. So we'll just create the CD. Okay, so we create a CD, and if you go to book, Same thing here. Book to price 34, create book. Okay, so we create a book here. Okay, so here we just use the JSF templates and the composite component in exercise 8. Okay, so let's move on to exercise 9. Exercise 9 is now we're going to use a JAJAX, okay, on JSF. Okay, so here basically we are going to use the JavaScript library that comes with the JSF. Okay, so we basically have that JSF JavaScript library here, and then we're going to modify the display page new book XHTML file. Okay, so here basically we have to actually give this book form an ID so that we can make a reference to it. So here, when a user click a button, that's the time that we want to perform Ajax the operation. So here Ajax execute book form. So meaning, when book form is actually submitted, Ajax will be performed. And then this render attribute is basically what needs to be re-rendered. Okay, so the only thing that will be re-rendered in this new book XHTML page is this book list. So, basically this book list will be re-rendered. Rest of the code, rest of the page will remain the same because that's what the Ajax is all about, right? Okay. Same thing with the new CD XHTML file. Okay. So when the form is executed, we want to execute it in the form of Ajax. Okay. And then the only field that will be re-rendered, the only place that will be re-rendered is specified here, CD list. Okay. All right. So let's run the application. So Ajax, build it. And run the application. Okay, so title. Now, here I'm going to just enable the developer tool so that we can actually capture the traffic. Okay, so title is the Ajax, price is 12, whatever, number of pages 34, and then we'll just create a book. Okay, so now this is actually captured traffic. Okay, so if you take a look at this one, this is the response coming from the server in Ajax fashion. Okay, so if you take a look at the header, you should actually see this is in fact the Ajax. So here, faces request is partial Ajax. This is indicating that the request is actually, coming from the client in Ajax manner. Okay. All right. Let me just close some of this. All right. So let's go to the next exercise. Next exercise is now we're going to actually introduce bean validation. Okay. So basically, in Java EE6, you can have this bean validation annotated with your bean directly. Okay, so whether that bean is being used in JSF or JPA, the validation is being performed. So here, basically, we are going to use the size annotation for this field, for this item, the project class. So the title has to be minimum 5 and maximum 50. Okay. And here for this language code has to be exactly 2. The size has to be exactly 2. Okay. And here we are going to change a book.xhtml file. This is actually from JSF here. So whenever there is an error, we like to display that errors in red colored. Okay. And here, so when the Ajax is being performed, the 2 places that we want to render is a book list as well as errors. Okay. All right, so let's run the application. So that is bean validation. So right, build it. And run it. Okay, so if I just try to create a book, you can see title should be between 5 and 50 and language code should be exactly 2 characters. Okay, so if I say title just 3 characters, we still should actually see the message. If I see title 6 characters, then that should be gone. Okay, but the language code still should be 2 characters. So if I say language code EN, then there should be no error message, and then the book is being created. All right, so that is bean validation. The last is we want to add the RESTful feature into the application. So EJB 3.1 allows you to have EJB as the RESTful resources. Okay, so here we're going to actually convert EJB into RESTful resources as well. Okay, so here for item EJB, we are going to add path annotation. So this is the root resource URL, right? Okay, and then we have a method called the getBook. Okay, so it will handle get method on this URL. And also it's actually path. So it's basically slash item slash number one or number two. Okay, and then we're actually getting that book key into path param so that we can use that key to handle some business logic. Here we are performing some query operation to find that particular book. Okay, and then we produces the XML for now. Right? Okay. And now you have to actually either create a web.xml file so that you actually configure the JAX-RS servlet, or as you have learned, you can actually use the application subclass. You can have a subclass that is annotated with the application path annotation. Okay, so in that case, you don't have to have web.xml file. So in this example, we are going to use a web.xml file to configure JAX-RS servlet. Okay, so we have done that. And now, we are going to use XML root element annotation to convert this item class, okay, this book class into XML or later on into JSON, okay? For now, the application support only XML, okay? So when you run the application, the final code also support let's actually run that application first. Build. And we are going to run the server. So basically, we are just deploying it, deploying it. Okay. So we have the existing the books. Okay. So we can just use the request. So we are going to use this URL. So basically, we are going to we are going to go web resources. This web resource is specified in this case web.xml file. Web.xml file. You see this one, web resources, and then we are going to actually access the items and one. So this items is actually root resource that is specified in the EJB. Okay, and this is the the key. Okay, so if I click this one, then we should see. Oh, is that why? I'm gonna just use this one. I'm not sure why it didn't work. See, I'm gonna just try book. Title. New book, price 23, description whatever, number of pages 24, illustration, text sci-fi, language code EN. Okay, now let me just try REST. Did I deploy the application? Web resources, item 1. Let me try. Yeah, so if it works, then we should be able to use this, URL, and then we should actually see this XML file. Okay. I'm gonna actually run the curl command. So here we are also supporting JSON here. So in produces, we are going to actually support not only XML but also JSON. Okay. So when we did that, and then I'm going to just use the curl command, see whether I have a better luck with that. Okay. Nothing is coming. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm going to just start. I'm going to just delete all the tables. Maybe it's actually, there's something confused about the ID. delete. Okay, so now I'm gonna start from scratch. Oh, let me rebuild. Okay, so title is REST. Price is 23. Description REST. Number of books is 20. Number of pages. Text is sci-fi. And language code is French. Create a book. Oh, okay, REST. All right. Now let me try the curl command. Okay, now it works. So it's in XML, okay? And then what we're going to do is we are going to display in terms of the JSON. So using curl command, I'm actually specifying the acceptable header is in JSON. Okay. So here we are going to invoke this command. Okay, and now you can see things are being displayed in the form of, things are being returned in the form of JSON. All right. That's pretty much what I have. So let me make sure.